Good evening, and welcome to ASIS Student Chapter's faculty panel. My name is Sarah Emerson, and I'm currently chair of the SJSU ASIS Student Chapter. Our program tonight is a faculty panel event which features SJSU SLIS faculty guest speakers contributing their experiences and insights from the 2011 ASIS annual meeting held October 9th through 12th in New Orleans, Louisiana. Tonight's event will last approximately an hour and a half, with additional time for a Q&A session after the presentations. At this time, I will now turn the mic over to Frank Florian, the ASIS Student Chapter Program Director, who has the distinct honor of introducing tonight's guest speakers.
Thanks, Sarah. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, I'm getting the smiley faces. So, hi everyone. We are so pleased and excited to have 4 of our faculty members with us this evening to share with us a bit of what they learned at the ASIS annual meeting in New Orleans this year. I wasn't able to attend the conference this year and have really been looking forward to hearing their feedback. We're hoping you feel the same way, and that's why you've joined us this evening. I'm going to keep the introductory part of this as short as possible so that we can allocate as much of our time tonight as possible to our speakers and hopefully some Q&A afterwards. So let me start by very briefly introducing the 4 members of the panel: Dr. Robert Ellett, Ann Harlan, Dr. Jeremy Kemp, and Dr. Geoffrey Liu. I'll provide a little more biographical information about each of our speakers when it is their turn to speak. Next, I just want to explain the format for this evening's event. Each speaker will speak in turn for about 15 to 20 minutes. We didn't set a specific theme for the panel, but just asked each speaker to feel free to share whatever made an impression on them or whatever else they felt like sharing about their experience at the conference. Since we want to make sure we get all the talks into the time we allotted for this event, we've decided it would be best to allow all the speakers to finish their talks before opening up the forum for Q&A. We've planned an hour and a half for this event, but we can run over a bit if there are lots of questions at the end and our speakers are able to stick around for a while longer. So, without further ado, let's get going. To start off this evening, since Dr. Liu has been a member of ASIS for a number of years and has attended a number of ASIS conferences as well, we asked him to provide an overview of ASIS as an organization, as well as provide a general overview of the annual conference. Dr. Liu received his BA and MA degrees in Library and Information Science from Wuhan University in China and his PhD in Communications and Information Sciences from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. His main research interests are information retrieval and information-seeking behaviors. Dr. Liu taught at the Central China Normal University for 2 years and worked briefly as a cataloging librarian at the Meter Library of Hawaii Pacific University and a research statistician in the Hawaii State Department of Health and Human Services. He has given numerous workshops and conference presentations on digital libraries and information technology at Chinese universities and libraries. At SLIS, he has taught Library 202, Library 242, Database Management, Library 246, Data Mining, and Library 285, the Research Methods class. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Liu.
Thank you, Frank. Hi, everybody. It's certainly a great pleasure to meet you all virtually. And I'm asked to give you my impression of the latest conference. And I figure since this event is for the student chapter, it might be beneficial to have a little bit of overview of the ASIS&T organization and the conference, sort of a brief historical perspective. What I'm going to do is to talk about the historical perspective, a general overview first, and then I will share with you what I learned from the conference this time. First, a little bit of history. And this is what I found. It's kind of an abbreviated version. I'll briefly go through it. The ASIS&T, or the American Society for Information Science, that was originally named, actually was founded in 1937, initially founded as the American Documentation Institute, which is actually a group representing a number of organizational agencies, and later turned into a society of individual members. The society was founded for initial interest in development of microfilm for information dissemination. So you guys probably know how we got started with the information business earlier. A lot of times at that point, people were focused on using microfilm as media for disseminating information. And then in 1950s, eventually people got to the point where to realize that the business of information is a business in its own right, deserving a dedicated attention from academia. And people start talking about information science as a scientific discipline. So from that point on, the society as well as the field started transitioning into the modern information science. And as there's increased awareness of automatic device for information storage and retrieval, and we're talking about computers. And at that time, they were mainly focused on the mainframe computers. Then in 1970s, we started having so-called online information retrieval, where you actually have a dedicated connection, and we're not talking about the internet yet. We have dedicated connection with a mainframe running somewhere, and then you have a bunch of dummy terminals, and then people would make non-distance call to make connections just to do information searching, and we call that kind of thing as a batch processing. So this transition apparently had a major impact on the research interests of the society, and started drawing in more people from the industry and from so-called experts conducting online searches for patrons at libraries. And this is also a period where we saw the transition from mainframe computing to mini computer and microcomputers. Given the increased popular use of microcomputers and the mini computers to do information searching, online searching, and eventually the human user, individual users got into the picture. And since searching, online searching was mostly done in library settings, so it's not surprising at all that libraries and library schools entered the picture and became a large portion of the society's membership. And then in the 1980s, we had the personal computer, and that further changed the business of information retrieval, and certainly further changed the main interest of the society itself. And research, both the society and the researchers in the field started paying increased more attention to individual users, and the research agenda also started shifting the focus from transaction-style searching to interactions, that is iterative searching, online searching, especially as we are doing today. And the user searching behavior becomes a major focal point for them, for the research area. And all those shifting interests have a significant impact on the themes of the annual conferences organized by the society. And of course, nowadays we're into the internet age, and when you go to conference, you hear people talking a lot more about web-based information retrieval, and talking about how to indexing, searching information resources in the web space, and of course dealing with the multimedia and multilingual information retrieval. I found it's kind of hard for me to give you an accurate picture of who joined the organization. So just to help me to talk a little bit, I did a little bit research on that, and found out that in the past 3 surveys of membership have been done. The earliest was done in 1994, and then the 1979, and then year 2003. It's interesting to look at the membership distribution of the society in comparison to what they found in 1979. So in the following discussion, I'm going to pretty much base my talk on that to give you a sense of how the society from the American Society for Information Science and Technology has changed in terms of membership, in terms of member composition in the last 20 or 30 years. The best way to deal with that is to give you a sense of the member profile. And this is what they found in the year 2003 survey of membership, and I suspect that that is still pretty much true today, and if not to a larger extent. In their survey, at that time in year 2003, they have about 3,000 members, and they sent out an email survey to all those guys and got about 823, and with relatively decent response rate. Among those responding to the survey, you have roughly equal split in terms of gender, although male is a participants or male members are of a smaller percentage. In terms of age, the mean age is 45. The median is over 45. So 45 is rather representative. And given that folks who go to the ASIS conference and attend the apply for the ASIS membership tend to be folks who are later into their career. So typically, when they started working on their PhD, by the time they got settled, it would be around 40. So the age is relatively representative. Further, they also calculate the mean and the median, excluding students members. So without students included in the data pile, the age shifts upward a little bit. Among those who responded to the survey, 21.6% were students. So you can see that students actually account for a rather significant portion of the members. In terms of years of membership, the mean number of years is 8. The median is 4, and you can see that the data is skewed a little bit toward the younger end. In terms of organizational affiliation, you see a clear shift of pattern from 1979 to year 2003. Say in 1979, we had a much larger percentage of members from the industries. So you can see that by the year 2003, the percentage has been decreased from 35% to 18%. And the similar pattern shows among the members who are affiliated with the government agencies. And so that the percentage decreased from 16% to 8%. But on the other hand, people associated with educational institutions increased dramatically. So apparently more and more faculty members and students end up being involved in the society and the conference as well. So from 1979 to year 2003, folks from academia, including both faculty and students, increased from 27% to 57%, of which students account for 4%. In terms of the type of work they do, teachers and researchers account for 30%, and academic librarians account for 11%. So there's a kind of apparently interesting pattern here, that pattern kind of suggests that folks who have stronger interest in conducting research are more likely to be a member of the society and also attend a conference. In terms of degree, they hold the highest degree, let's say 32% 8.3% hold a PhD in year 2003, and that is an increase from 17.5% in year 1979. I don't know how we're going to read the numbers. It looks like that it might have something to do with the shift from the more participants or more representatives from the industry to a dominant representation of the education, of the academia. Also, you got a 55% with the master degrees, and the folks coming to the conference or join the society with the highest degree of bachelor decreased slightly from 17.1% to 11%. So that gives you a kind of shifting patterns of the demographics among the society members. And apparently that would have an impact on the content nature of the conference and the culture of the conference as well. And we'll get to talk about the conference culture later on. In terms of academic background, 66.2% were from a library and information science, with arts and the humanity background accounts for 9.1%. And the rest of it are from some other field, probably computer science or engineering. And the general pattern is that folks from computer science and engineering attend the conference less and less frequently, and we are attracting fewer and fewer folks from that sector. In terms of the primary society, half of the respondents to the survey claimed that ASIS&T is their primary society, and half of those also list some other societies. Among those, ALA is the most common one, and then followed by ACM, and then finally the Special Library Association. The primary reason for them to join the society typically is to learn about new developments and the issues in the field, and while they claim that when they join some other society as their primary society, their main goal there is to network and to learn new skills to use on the job. Now we get to talk about the conference. The ASIS&T organization actually offers 3 categories of conferences or meetings, depending on how you look at it. The annual conference, which takes place typically in November, is the major event. They also organize a middle year meeting, and that happens, I believe, it's somewhere in May or in June. And then you have a whole bunch of special interest groups, and then they kind of offer workshops and kind of a sporadic schedule. And the survey also asks those folks to reflect on their experience of attending the conference. That also help us to understand, what is happening today, in this year's conference. Of those who attended the conference in past 3 years, 83% went to the conference just to listen to papers and presentations. And then followed by more of them saying that they went to the conference for face-to-face contact and to network with others. Only 40% went to the conference to deliver papers and presentations. And an extremely small number of conference goers went there for job seeking. So that tells us that you don't have to have a paper to present in order to attend the conference. A lot of people would just go there and to pick up new ideas, to pick up the collective intelligence, so-called. Which is what I have been done for many years, probably since 1995. I haven't really done much presentation at a conference either, although in early years I went to the conference almost every year, and mainly to pick up research ideas from them, and of course we do a little bit of committee work on site. What the survey also found, and this is probably most interesting to our chapter members, they found that the rich is getting richer, the poor is getting poorer. And what happens is that students and the low salary people are more likely to pay for conference expenses out of their own pocket. while those guys with higher degrees, mostly hired as professors at library and information schools, those guys were more likely to go to the conference with the cost covered and paid by their employer, by their school, by their university. And so how to bring down the cost to try to attract more students to attend the conference apparently is a major challenge for them, and they have been trying to be innovative in that aspect, offering all sort of opportunities, such as recruiting volunteers to provide some on-site services in exchange for the conference fee, and even cover part of the hotel and transportation, and also set up a scholarship for students' paper competitions. So they're trying to do all sorts of things to encourage involvement of students. And also they have also found that older members, that is the folks who have been in a society for more years, for longer years, are more likely to attend the conference and have the society as their primary society. The annual conference, the typical pattern, just like any other academic conference, the typical structure, organization of the conference content is like this, and I'm talking about the annual conference, and the mid-year meeting would be following the same kind of pattern. The typically would have at least 2 or 3 plenary sessions where they would invite the leaders or senior researchers, the big shot guys in the field to come in and give a talk. And the plenary speech or presentation would typically try to capture some major issues and the challenges that the folks are facing in the field or new development in the field. And the discussion is most inspiring and tend to provide some kind of philosophical, deep thinking about current issues in the field. So most of the conference goers who definitely attend the plenary sessions, although they might go sightseeing and shopping during some other time slots where you have a parallel paper session. The plenary sessions typically would be given in the first couple of days in the morning, and with the other time slots scheduled for parallel paper sessions in combination with the panel discussion. So when you go to conference, you get to see more panel discussion there as well, and a lot of times, if we count it on average, you would get about 4 to 5 panel discussions. Folks propose their panel discussion to talk about some intriguing issues or some research interests by recruiting a number of people who have been done work or recent work in an area. And this is where you get heated discussion and debate, live discussions, and you also get to hear controversial issues and contradictory perspectives. And if you enjoy live discussion, this is probably the best place to go. For example, this year we had a panel session talking about quantum physics applied to library and information science, especially applied to information retrieval, information science. And this is a kind of anecdotal. One person was talking about the quantum phenomena of information science and information behavior, making a point that information seeking behavior, information and information retrieval are becoming more and more undeterministic. And then you got an audience, a lady standing up from the audience saying, well, this is not what the quantum physics means. So then you get this kind of interesting dialogue there. And I'm just giving you this example to show the point here. The conference also include a poster session that's typically conducted in combination with a presidential reception. This is where you get, on average, probably about 60, sometimes even 100 posters. academic papers, peer-reviewed papers, but not being able to squeeze into the presentation slots. So what they do is that they prepare a poster and a poster with the picture, like a poster thing, on the board, and then it's more like a cocktail party, and people start wandering around and mingle and chat, and so you get kind of a one-to-one attention, and the presenters will get to discuss their research, sort of in informal way, and to communicate and also get input from the audience. That's probably also interesting because you wander around and you can choose to look at the ones that are most interesting you. Then in between of the conference, they will also schedule some activities mainly for administrative purpose. So for instance, these special interest groups will tend to have their own meetings somewhere, a lot of committee activities happening there, and of course including student chapter representative meetings, and that's where they got the faculty sponsors for student chapters to sit together to brainstorm for new ideas and to share their observations. Then there's a big banquet. Well, the food is getting worse, let me tell you, but the activity is getting more exciting. The typical pattern is that you would get and this is where you get to see all kinds of awards handed out with a big shot, coming in to serve the honor and to hand out the placard, whatever. The type of awards haven't changed that much. The best information science book is always one, has always been done for all those years. Student chapter is an exciting one. This is where you hear a lot of noises when the student chapter win awards, and you get a big crowd in the audience to start applauding and making funny noises. In general, the conference theme has been changing, if you ask me. In the past, it seems to have an emphasis on information science, sort of on the information science side. What I mean is you don't get to hear that much about the library perspective. But the library science perspective is gaining stronger and stronger voices over the years. The conference theme tend to be, they're trying to be broad enough to attract wide interest, and it also becomes more and more aware of increasing social issues raised by information technologies. And generally, you see a decreasing representation of computer science and engineering folks in that area. So in other words, it becomes less and less heavy technology, engineering focused, but more and more open to user perspective and general social perspective related to information and information science and information technologies. And the conference culture has been evolved as well as the population attending, the member population of the society and the population of conference goers changed over years. The conference culture has kind of evolved as well, and I sort of mentioned here and there in regard to that. So I'm going to try to highlight those key points here. First one is that apparently after the dot-com crash in year 2002, since then we have seen continuously decreasing or reduced presence of folks from the industry sector. This time, I don't think we had anybody from the industry. At least I didn't bump into anyone. So it looks like they're almost disappearing. And we also see that a disappearing presence of researchers and practitioners from the computer science department, from the engineering department. At least at this time, in the conference programs, I didn't see anyone from computer science or engineering department. Apparently, those guys have taken their business somewhere else. For one thing, for instance, I knew several years ago, they started taking all their information retrieval research from the computer science and engineering perspective. They have taken their business to other conferences, like a search engine conference, for instance. That conference was also held annually in Boston, in England, and all over the place, Paris. So those folks are kind of have stopped attending the ASIS conference. The other place they have gone to is the CIGA conference, the Special Interest Group of Information Retrieval. So a lot of computer science engineer folks have gone there. So the ASIS&T conference at the same time becomes more and more dominated by people from library and information science background. And that kind of shift is reflected in the conference content, the theme, the kind of papers you see presented there, and also from a general culture of the conference as well. The conference apparently becomes more and more focused on technological aspects of the information profession instead of the science. And on the side, I guess it's worth it to point out that for a long time, since 1950s, ever since the society got started, folks in the area have constantly been struggling with the idea of establishing information science as a science in a traditional sense of scientific discipline. And they had trouble because they found that information science, it's hard to find a kind of solid mathematical background where you can really easily explain to other people that this is your science. And they're trying to do that thing in a kind of parallel fashion. For instance, in biology, we look at the living things, right? And in physics, we look at how objects, inanimate objects interact with each other. In chemistry, we look at the elements and the chemical reactions. So what happens in information science? If we follow the same kind of thinking, then we tend to think that, say, information would be equivalent to electrons and atoms or animals. And so you end up focusing on the properties and how to transfer, how to move, the physical law of the information, that sort of thing. But that kind of definition is too narrow, and the human user got kicked out. So if you widen the scope to draw in all the information technologies, application development, human behaviors, user system interactions, so that things become really messy and kind of probably too diverse to present it as a kind of uniform science. So this is probably part of the reason, and several books have published in that area trying to make the argument, explain what information science is, what kind of science is the information science, and drawing principles from all sorts of fields like computer science, cognitive science, so on and so forth. But this is a continuous struggle, and folks are still having trouble with that. User online information behavior is becoming a new focus, and in terms of community, to what extent do we have a sense of community in that area? Well, the survey, in the survey, they got all sort of interesting inputs here. For instance, some members complain saying that there are too much cliquish behavior, especially at the receptions and social events. So others say the society should do a better job of bringing together researchers and practitioners. And some members feel that they still need to spell out the definition of information science. In terms of journal, the society publishes ASIS&T journal, which is top-ranking academic journal in library information science. Recently, we see more and more international papers. I mean papers published by submitted or contributed by international authors. Some consider articles in ASIS&T very academic and too technical for good. And at the same time, want more practical articles on various topics, and so that the content, the research would be more accessible to people in business environment. And they also want to see more application-oriented applications to help with performance on job. Some do value the high quality of articles and view it as real science. I guess that concludes my presentation. I will save the question and answer session toward the as Frank said. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Liu. That was a very thorough and interesting introduction to ASIS and also the conferences, especially for those of us that haven't had a chance, haven't been in the organization very long, like myself, or had a chance to attend a conference yet. As Dr. Liu said, we'll hold off on questions until the end. So if you have any burning questions, please hang on to those and save those for the end. So next up is Dr. Ellett. For those of you interested in cataloging, you will probably be familiar with Dr. Ellett. Even if you didn't take Library 248 with him, if you go on to take Library 249 Advanced Cataloging, you will almost certainly have the privilege of studying with him. Dr. Ellett received his doctoral degree from Nova Southeastern University's Graduate School of Computer and Information Sciences. Since May 1989, he has been the catalog librarian at the Joint Forces Staff College, located in Norfolk, Virginia. In addition to teaching at SLIS and working as a cataloger at a library, Dr. Ellett is active in various professional organizations, including the Association for Library Collections and Technical Services Division of ALA, the Special Libraries Association, the Online Audiovisual Catalogers Association, and the American Society for Information Science and Technology. He has designed several training courses and workshops for local national library conferences and is also a trainer for the Program for Cooperative Cataloging. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Ellett.
Thank everyone for attending, and a special thank you to both Sarah and Frank for organizing this panel discussion and moderating it. Well, tonight I plan to briefly go over some lessons learned from the ASIS&T annual meeting. It was my first ASIS&T annual meeting. I have been a member of the association for a number of years, but this year, because of work requirements, I wasn't able to attend the American Library Association conference, so instead I attended this conference in October. I thought that this conference was so valuable that I paid for it totally out of pocket, and it was, in fact, a very valuable conference. Well, as Frank mentioned, I am a member of a number of organizations that have conferences. So what I wanted to do is, first of all, kind of highlight how different the ASIS&T conference is from the other conferences that I have attended. For example, the American Library Association conference, as you might know, holds both a midwinter meeting and an annual conference. And these meetings deal with general aspects such as advocacy. They also deal with various functional areas such as reader services, public service, and of course technical services such as the division, the Association of Library Collections and Technical Services Division. They focus on various functional areas, and the key word here is libraries, because they deal chiefly with libraries. Now, ALIS is the American the Library and Information Science Educators organization, and that conference is held prior to the January midwinter meeting of the American Library Association. And that conference, as you might imagine, would center around library and information science education. And so the primary focus of that is for educators to attend and to discuss educational issues, of course. Another biennial conference that I attend that of course occurs every other year is the OLAC conference. And for catalogers of unusual materials, it's very important. OLAC stands for Online Library Audiovisual catalogers Incorporated. And this conference, of course, deals with the variety of audiovisual formats that are cataloged in libraries. Related to special cataloging types is the NASIC organization and the NASIC conference. NASIC is the North American Serials Interest Group, and as you can imagine, this organization deals with the cataloging of continuing resources, and they have an annual conference each year that centers around workshops dealing with serials and integrating resources. And then every year there's also the Military Librarians Workshop, and that is held in December of each year. And as you can imagine, this deals with libraries that work in defense libraries or defense-related organizations. And to give a shameless plug, this year the Military Librarians Workshop in 2011 will occur the first week in December in my backyard in Norfolk, Virginia. In fact, my organization, the Joint Forces Staff College, is hosting it, and I'm on the program committee, and I've rallied so that we are giving library science students a special discount. So if you happen to be in the Virginia, North Carolina, or even perhaps the Washington, D.C. area and would like to attend this conference, please email me, contact me, because there's a special discount for library science students. And then finally, the ASIS&T conference, or ASIS&T conference, is very different, and I'm going to talk about why this conference is different from the previous others that I mentioned. Well, one of the big differences is preparation, because with the other conferences you might perhaps see an agenda that would be a brief agenda, perhaps the name of a presentation, or a short abstract, a few words of the presentation that you might want to attend. Well, with the ASIS&T conference, full abstracts and many times full papers are published prior to the conference, and the presenters often talk about the implications of their papers and their research. So it really behooves the conference attendee for the ASIS&T conference to read the abstracts and the full papers prior to the conference to really understand what is going on, because for the most part the presenters do not read their papers, thank goodness. They instead have formulated short PowerPoint presentations that give a general sense of their presentation, and then they open up the floor for questions. And this is where I think the ASIS&T conference is very different from the other conferences, because I noticed that they leave quite a bit of time at the end of their presentations, sometimes as much as a third of the presentation, for questions, because they want to elicit discussion about their research. Because of course, one of the big differences between the ASIS&T conference and ALA, the ALA conference may highlight research, but what I found in the past recent years of attending ALA is that many of the research presentations are research of how I did it well. In other words, they'll examine a case study from their own institutions, their own libraries, on how they implemented a program, how they did it well, or sometimes how they failed, where the real experimental research has been moved to the ASIS&T conference. So you'll find a gold mine of ideas if you are looking to write a thesis, for example. So I definitely would encourage students to consider attending the ASIS&T conference if you're considering the thesis option, or even if you're considering writing a major paper in the research class in LABR 240 and 285, I believe. That this is a place where you can get tons of ideas from, as I said, not only the abstracts, but sometimes the full papers. One of the great things about this conference was the number of panel discussions. So if perhaps one researcher's research was not your cup of tea in the panel, that researcher didn't perhaps dominate the entire session. Perhaps they were given 10 or 15 minutes. So if they were speaking on a subject you weren't interested in, there were always others during the panel discussion that had something to pique your interest. And so this conference is very different because really you should do your homework ahead of time. Read the papers prior to conference, formulate questions, come to the conference willing to ask your questions, talk to colleagues, question colleagues, etc. For example, there was a session that I attended on what should be taught in knowledge organization courses. And I happened to be sitting next to an attendee who made the bold statement that she didn't think cataloging should be taught. And I just looked at her and thought, well, you know, I wondered if perhaps yes, you probably wonder what I thought. Well, what I thought was I was hoping that this particular person was from California, because I thought if she was smoking cannabis, it was illegal otherwise. But she went on to say that she didn't think cataloging was relevant because Google actually took over the organization of all the material. And it was interesting to find out that she really didn't teach cataloging at all, that she had taught an information organization class years ago, and she didn't really keep up with the developments in the field. But it was interesting to share ideas despite my disagreement with her opinion. So what do you really do at this conference? Of course, you attend sessions, and as Dr. Liu said, maybe some of the sessions aren't your cup of tea, so you have time for rest or shopping or sightseeing. You participate by asking questions. You network with colleagues, of course. And I've got numerous ideas for new research ideas based on reading the abstracts and listening to the panel discussions. And again, there's ample time for networking. Get to know your colleagues from different institutions. For example, I'm going to have a colleague of mine speak on a future session in advanced cataloging, and we talked about how to teach resource description and access. And so she and I are going to most likely write a paper on teaching RDA. Another way that you can really get involved with ASIS&T is to join a special interest group or SIG. There's in fact a whole night reception devoted to what they call SIG Rush, which is basically the way for the organization to highlight their special interest groups. This is where the different interest groups will basically highlight what they're about and what they do. If you're a newcomer to the conference, they also have a brunch that is on Sunday, right before the main plenary session of the conference begins. And this session basically will allow all of the first-time attendees and new members to ASIS to get together. And various introductions of the SIGs are given. The president of the organization speaks, of course, and talks about the focus of the organization. And you get to meet other first-timers. So if you find that you don't know other people in your particular room or area, you can see those people and communicate and discuss various topics with them. So I've included the link here to the SIGs page for ASIS&T. And I've also listed a variety of different SIGs that are available to join. The SIGs, in many times, will sponsor a program or session, or sometimes a post-conference session. And you can see a variety of different SIGs. I was very interested in the Digital Libraries SIG, and of course in the Knowledge Management SIG, which deals with knowledge organization. So those were the two SIGs that I was very interested in. But there are another number of other SIGs that are very interesting, of course. And each of the SIGs have their own page that highlight not only the major focus of the special interest group, but the officers of the SIG. So you can contact the officers, and many of them have separate web pages as well. Many of them are very active outside of the conference itself. And here's the one for digital libraries, for example. So you can see that each one spells out a particular focus, and they have, of course, even sometimes student chapters of the SIGs. And so that's basically my overview and lessons learned from the conference. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much, Dr. Ellett. Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and keep moving here. Like I said, we want to try to get all the speakers in and then have Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions for Dr. Ellett or some of the topics he brought up, please save those until the end. So our next speaker is Professor Mary Ann Harlan. Professor Harlan is a SLIS alum and received her Master's in Library and Information Science in 1999 from San Jose State. In addition, she is currently a candidate in the San Jose State University, Queensland University of Technology Gateway PhD program. She has worked in California public schools for 15 years, 11 of those years in middle and high school libraries. She has also served in leadership positions for both the California School Library Association and American Association of School Libraries. Professor Harlan's current research focus is on information literacy within a specific context and the process of learning in informal environments. This is representative of her continued interest in adolescence learning and education. At SLIS, she has taught Library 233, School Library Media Centers, Library 250, Design and Implementation of Instructional Strategies for Information, and Library 264, Material for Tweens. So please join me now in giving a warm welcome to Professor Harlan. And since you're not using slides, Professor Harlan, I'm just going to leave the slides where they're at right now.
Great, thank you, and thank you so much for having me tonight. I didn't prepare slides because I was hoping to maybe just be a little bit more informal and riff off what Dr. Liu and Dr. Ellett have already talked about and give you more of a kind of a qualitative, affective response to what the conference was like. Like Dr. Ellett, and I suspect Dr. Liu as well, I'm a conference goer. I love conferences. I feel like, you know, you have this opportunity to learn something and that they're professionally and personally refreshing to me. And so I've attended ALA for many years, both the midwinter and the annual conference. I'm also have gone to the AASL conference, which is the Conference for School Librarians. In fact, I leave for that in 2 days. And of course, the California Library Association conferences, among many other computer-using education conferences. So I have sort of a sense of how conferences set up and what conference culture is like. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit, sort of emphasize some of the things that Dr. Ellett mentioned, as well as some of the sort of things that I sort of experienced at ASIS. One thing about ASIS is that pre-preparation for panels. There's a lot of panel presentations at ASIS, which is does give you a chance to see a really wide range of things in a very short amount of time, and in and around a specific interest. And that was a really pleasurable thing for me because there was such a wide range of it. And because of that, there's also kind of a culture there where it's okay, and this isn't always true in every conference, but it is in this one, where it was okay to sit in and listen to maybe the first 2 presentations and hopefully have an opportunity to engage in terms of questions and answers, and then get up and go to another session. And so I was able to do that a couple of times where there were papers that were sort of offset but were during the same panel time. I was able to sit in, listen to one presentation, and ask a couple of questions and then move on, which was a nice sort of element there. And that's part of the culture, that there's an expectation that that's going to be happening and nobody gets upset if you get up and leave. So that was a sort of a nice sort of presentation style type of thing that went on at ASIS. I think what I really wanted to kind of mention, though, is that while Dr. Liu is right, there were not a tremendous amount of practitioners there, and that probably sets this conference apart from many of the conferences that I normally attend. There were a few. I did run into a few. But there was not an obvious hierarchy of, oh, I'm a doctor, I already have my PhD, and I'm a researcher, I'm a professor, and you're just a student. I didn't necessarily sense that there was a hierarchy that was in place at that conference, and where there are at some conferences. It seemed a little bit more flat in terms of the sense. Because I was there as a PhD student and candidate, and I had the lovely little student ribbon that they allow you to attach to your name tag, it opened up some interesting opportunities that student attendance provides to you. So on one hand, there was incredible access to professors, researchers, people who are working in my areas of interest, that I had an opportunity to approach them, to talk to them, to not only network, but to ask them questions about their research, to challenge my thinking about my own research, because this was such a research-oriented conference in that sense. And I just had amazing access to people who are working in my field. And you know, that's going to be dependent on the field that you're working in, but because I'm interested in information use, it really, that opportunity was amazing for me, that sort of networking opportunity. But they also really encourage student participation, and they do a couple of things there to like embrace their students. I didn't attend, but I know I got an email about a super secret special student party the very first night, which was an opportunity to sort of get to know some of the other students there and start to network outside of your own school environment, which was great. And then another thing, and there's somebody in the session tonight who actually did participate in this, is there's a student design competition where students had an opportunity to work on a design problem and present, and they worked with people in different schools. And so again, there was an opportunity to get to know people outside of San Jose State and to network across those ways. And in that way, students were very much integrated into what was happening at the conference. I really felt that in particular at the new members luncheon, where it was not only was the opportunity to sort of get to know the SIGs happen at the SIG Rush, but there was an invitation to attend SIG meetings and an opportunity to involve yourself in participating in the SIGs. And if they wanted student participation, it wasn't something that like you had to have a certain number of years of membership in and work yourself into these SIGs in terms of leadership roles. They were looking for new and fresh sort of volunteer hours, basically, but at the same time, it's a great way to sort of meet people. And so there was this encouragement to get involved in the special interest groups and to get involved in the organization. And it wasn't like you have to have this many years in. It was, we want new people, we want fresh energy. And that opportunity was really, I felt, for me at least, was very open to everybody there. So as a student there with the handy-dandy student ribbon, there was a lot of friendly access. And I talked to other students there who felt the same way, both PhD and master's level students. You don't want to just randomly go up and start stuttering away at, say, Tom Wilson, information behavior guru, but you know, for the most part, those people were friendly in terms of opening themselves up to questions and being available to that, and particularly if you had a student ribbon on. So if you ever have an opportunity to go as a student, wear your student ribbon. It's a good idea. And so there was that sort of kind of aspect to it that was really nice, that I never felt like I was sort of outside of things as a student, that I was more integrated into what was happening. And I appreciated that. The other thing, of course, like for me, it really was a great learning experience in terms of some of the papers, because it stretched my thinking a little bit, and you kind of walk away with like, oh, I want to think about that more. I want to delve into that more. And the panels are a really great way to do that if you have those access to those papers, because it really extends what's happening in this like 20-minute presentation that you've got going in front of you, and you're to sort of extend those kind of ideas. And so on that level as well, like I come back and I look at my research and I say, oh, here's this interesting thing going on here. And so for me, that it was really a learning conference and more than a practitioner's conference, which is a lot of what you sort of engage in other conferences. And practitioners' conferences have a lot of value, like this is what I do and this is how I did it best, and where you can get great ideas for what you're doing in work. But this was in some ways a little bit more cerebral in terms of you would have to think about how to make applications of the research work. So it's certainly there. In fact, I saw a really great presentation and paper on virtual reference and using cyber language and virtual reference that was really interesting in terms of how you structure the language in it. One other thing that I wanted to mention, because I've never seen this before, was a different type of presentation that was really cool. It was called a fishbowl panel, and again, it was really one of the things where it was very interactive, and this was unusual because I've never seen it. I didn't see it anyplace else at ASIS, and I've never seen it before. But they put 5 chairs in the middle of a room, and they put 4 people in the chairs and asked a question and sort of started getting a conversation going in and around that question. This happened to be focused on youth information behaviors, which is obviously where I'm located, what I'm really most interested in. And if you had a comment or a question or some way that you wanted to interact, you would join the circle. So the audience really had an opportunity to come into the circle, and then once they joined, somebody that was already in the circle would get up and leave, and so you'd always have, it was almost like musical chairs. You'd always have an empty chair open, reverse musical chairs. And so it was a really interactive participant sort of panel. And I bring it up because it was something new and unique to me, but I also bring it up because if you ever are thinking about doing presentations or panel presentations, it was a really nice way to include the audience and get the audience really engaged in what was happening. It was a little bit harder to sit in the back and just take notes and not actually fully engage in what was happening. So that was a really nice sort of element there. Most of what I was going to say, though, is very similar to what Dr. Ellett said as far as, you know, how to prepare, what to think about, and the way the panel sort of sessions were set up. So I personally found them infinitely more valuable than the plenary sessions this time. That's not always the case, but it was definitely for this particular conference. So I'm going to go ahead, because I know Jeremy's got some really great pictures of the posters, and so, or Dr. Kemp, so I'm going to go ahead and stop and let him take it on from there.
Thank you so much. So actually, let me let Frank do his job.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Kemp. All right, first of all, thanks to Professor Harlan. Wow, so much good information so far. Even though I wasn't able to attend, I feel like I'm getting a good sense of the organization and the conferences. So on to our final speaker for the evening, who is Dr. Jeremy Kemp. Dr. Kemp has a doctorate in education and master's degrees from both Stanford and Northwestern University. He is a full-time faculty member at SLIS and started teaching online in 1999. At SLIS, he has taught Library 246, Advanced Information Technology Tools, Library 251, Interface Design for Information Systems, and Library 287, Seminar in Information Science. He has been an active proponent and user of the Second Life immersive learning environment and keeps the official wiki for educators using the Second Life environment at www.simteach.com. His instructional technology project connecting Moodle and Second Life has attracted hundreds of participants from around the world. The URL for that project is www.sloodle.com. So without further ado, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Kemp.
Thank you so much, Frank, and thank you so much for allowing me to join on here. And thank you very much, Sarah, as well. And thank you also to our director who supported the trip for me to New Orleans. Thank you very much to Sandy. So I have a few bits and pieces. I was a new attendee. I had never attended the conference before, but I had a very interesting opportunity to address and argue with one of the speakers here, David White, who proposed a continuum of visitors versus residents in his panel, and he proposed a replacement for Prensky's digital natives and digital immigrants. So you can see his article. Let me get the link here. You can see his article here. Yeah, there we go. And so this was a wonderful opportunity to actually meet somebody that I'd read about previously, and just by complete coincidence happened to be at this conference, and he's in England. So I had a personal exchange with him during the conference, and then later on I sent 2 or 3 emails back and forth. So that was a great opportunity to interact with the speaker who's doing really interesting stuff and presented a panel. I also have captured, I have 30 or 40 of them. So far I've converted 20 posters displayed in New Orleans. So I wanted to talk about one of the poster session, one of the posters, just to give you an example. So you can see, obviously if you look at that website, I still have a lot of work to do on the formatting of the images and the formatting of that web page. But let me show you a couple here and tell you what I learned. So if you've ever done anything in Amazon Mechanical Turk, working with crowd sourcing and applications, I built a few of these, very, very simple ones, and they're very powerful. For 2 or 3 cents, you can get a small amount of work done by complete strangers. So a couple of posters from University of Texas in Austin, and these were students. I'll show you the other poster in a sec. These were 2 students in the same class who had tackled a problem in the course was in crowdsourcing, and the problem that they tried to tackle was the spam problem. So you would maybe design a task for someone to do on Amazon Mechanical Turk, and some stranger would come in and give you a bogus result, and you would pay them a couple of cents, and it gets expensive after hundreds and hundreds of these things. So how do you weed out people who are just goofing around, just going in and trying to get money for nothing, basically? So there were 2 different solutions to this problem. Hoyan here used a computer and artificial intelligence to look at people who had completed these tasks to see if a particular user was giving good quality responses. So that was one way, an automated way to do this. By the way, if you go to the link that I just gave you on the left, you can see all of these posters in a high enough resolution to be able to read them. So just click on them and you can zoom in. The second one here, Klinger did a similar sort of a solution to a similar problem, the spam problem crowdsourcing. Yeah, Klinger gave a solution to cloud sourcing here, and he worked with, you can see, social networks. So he had his users authenticate in social networks before they could come into the crowdsourcing platform. So that was interesting. One is automated, highly automated. The other one uses someone else's authentication system. So those are two examples of posters that were a pretty interesting combination. And I've got another 20 there on the website, and I keep converting more and more over time. So you'll see more and more there. The next thing I wanted to tell you about was Katie Borner's winner of the 2011 ASIS Book of the Year Award. And this is a gorgeous book. I wanted to do a little bit of video with you to show you the book. So let me see if I can do this right. Give me a smiley face if you can see my hands in the book itself. Okay, great. Okay, so this is the Atlas of Science, and you can see this is a $20 book. $20 book is 250 pages, full color, MIT Press. And here's an example of visionary approaches, and you can see here Tim Berners-Lee and Jimmy Wales. Let me go ahead and go to that page. If you go to if you look at the main screen there and illuminate, you should be able to see this page, a close-up of this page. So they've taken all the different visionary approaches and laid them down for global brain, man-machine symbiosis, knowledge visualization. So that's pretty interesting. Let me go to one other page, a couple other pages so you can see. This is the article, the Wikipedia article on abortion, and it's pretty interesting. They start with the authors, you can see the close-up on the main screen, along with edits that they made over time. And this article is pretty vandalism prone, and you can see two places where there were vandalism on that article, and then over time. So that's pretty interesting. One other, okay, there's also the oil age is a nice piece about peak oil. And then finally this one, just to give you an idea of data visualization. This is called the Science and Technology Outlook 2005 through 2055. And you can see a close-up on the main screen, and these are different types of innovations that will happen over time, including for the smart car. The driverless car has 3 innovations on sensory, lightweight infrastructure, and mathematical world. So that's an innovation that will happen over time, and they're saying that will happen probably in 2030 or 2040. So I thought that was really interesting. It's a gorgeous book, and it's less than $20, so you might want to check that out. So Katie Borner won the ASIS&T Book of the Year Award for that book. So for me, it was a bunch of really interesting small pieces tied together, and I just wanted to share that with you. And I'll go ahead and wrap up very early here and give everyone a chance to answer some questions. Oh, also, one other thing before I finish. How many of you, by show of claps or smiley faces, are members of ASIS&T and are getting this Journal of the American Society of Information Science and Technology? This is in the top 10 books in information science, top 10 journals. It's just a fire hose. Every month I'm getting one of these, and it's more than enough to read each month. It's really a great benefit of membership. So let me finish up and hand it back to Frank. So thanks, Frank.
Okay, well thanks, Jeremy. So that pretty much wraps up all our talks then. Lots of very interesting information. So at this point, I'd just like to open up the forum to questions from participants. You can just grab the mic once I let go of it to ask a question, or raise your hand if someone else has the mic. Make sure to release the mic after you finish asking your question. And if you don't have a mic or are too shy to use it, you can also just type your question into the chat window. So any questions for any of the participants? And I also want to say that the faculty members who participated, you can also ask each other questions if you don't have to defer just to students asking questions.
I have a question. For conference goers not particularly interested in theoretical and academic topics, Did you notice any programs at the conference that had a more practical or perhaps applied research focus?
There was a wonderful panel discussion on developing FRBR, which is Fundamental Requirements for Bibliographic Records-based library catalogs for users, because one of the discussions that broke out is, what is the primary focus of the catalog? And this is a very elementary question, but has very sophisticated issues around it. So I think that that's a very practical question, because that not only deals with the theory of how to build a catalog, but what should be put in the catalog and how the catalog should be searched. So that was one of the sessions that I thought was well attended, and they did a wonderful job in talking about all the issues.
Since we're on the subject of cataloging, and since I'm in your 249 class this semester, Dr. Ellett, I was curious, were there any other sessions or presentations at the conference that were particularly interesting to you in the area of cataloging and the direction that cataloging is going?
Well, as I said, there was the session about basically what should be taught in a knowledge organization course, or what, if it should be taught at all, and how it should be taught. And there was a person that mentioned that they thought it should not be taught online at all. That was a very interesting session. There was a very interesting session on facet-based library catalogs, where the presenters did somewhat of a survey of the landscape of the catalog, talking about the history of the catalog and how it evolved and the problems now with the current catalog system. And so I thought that was very interesting. Another session that I attended that really wasn't catalog related, but I thought was really interesting, was the session on open access and scholarly communication. And they had representatives from a library school, a publisher, a vendor, and they talked about different aspects of open access. And I thought it was interesting. They had a person from ProQuest, dissertation and app and thesis, and that person talked about how open access of the dissertations actually promoted more citations, because one of the things that was talked about, of course, in the academic circles is the more often the individual is cited, the more well-known their research is, and often that makes a cycle where the author then becomes much more prolific in writing more and researching more. So that was another session that I found. But there were tons of cataloging related. There was one on social tagging and folksonomies, on indexing and retrieving, and I thought that was a really good session. So it was very much information organization rich.
And Dr. Liu, I see there's a question that came up for you in the chat window.
Yeah, I saw the question. Okay, so does the loss had a notable influence on the conference? Definitely. In the past, you would hear a lot more papers presenting experimental results of new algorithms or new approach to indexing and searching. That is automated search engine design kind of stuff. You also get more papers on informatics, bibliometrics kind of stuff, mathematical stuff, and that portion is definitely gone. It's definitely gone. All the focus of what we're doing is servers, system building, algorithm design for indexing and retrieval have taken our business to the CIGA conference.
Dr. Liu, I had a maybe not exactly a related question, but when you were talking about the shift away from industry to more education in sort of the society's membership, when I first joined ASIS, I was very surprised that there wasn't a local non-student chapter, especially given that, you know, we live here in the Bay Area where at the heart of Silicon Valley, with a lot of things going on in information science and the web space as well. Do you think this shift away from sort of the industry focus in the organization may have? Well, first of all, let me ask you: has there been a non-student chapter in the area before? And does this shift away from industry maybe explain why there isn't a current chapter?
Actually not. The two things are separate. The student chapter in the Bay Area, or is particularly in San Jose State, whether there's one or not, doesn't seem to have anything to do with the shifting in their membership distribution. To be more accurately speaking, there was actually partially a student chapter. I guess the student chapter was kind of organized in terms of geographical location rather than university specific. For a long time, UC Berkeley has been very active at the ASIS conference, and instead of taking their student chapter as a UC Berkeley specific chapter, they actually opened up to include all folks, all students affiliated with other universities in North Bay Area. So for quite some time, students from San Jose State were actually part of the Bay Area Bay Area student chapter. So the student chapter was actually called the ASIS&T Bay Area student chapter, and San Jose State was part of it. And although the majority of participants in the student chapter business were based in UC Berkeley, and so for more than 10 years, I was the faculty co-sponsor representing our student body in that Bay Area student chapter. So there was a student chapter covering the San Jose State for quite some time. It's just that then you all probably are aware of that the UC Berkeley shifted their school mission to some extent and moved away from library science to information management, and the student there became less and less active in ASIS&T, and then ultimately we decided to have our own student chapter, and let's say about 2 or 3 years ago, the base of the student chapter moved to San Jose State. Although we're trying to have an open chapter, including both a student from Berkeley and San Jose State, but the Berkeley students pretty much just shied away from that, and so we had 2 or 3 times trying to reviving the student chapter, and we did get some pretty good start, and then ultimately we managed to get approval to have a San Jose State specific chapter. So this is what we have now, and starting last year, I guess earlier last year, we asked Dr. Sandy Hirsch to step in so that the chapter can benefit from her influence in the ASIS&T society.
Okay, thanks. I was also curious. So it sounds like there's been a student chapter, active in the area. What about? Has there ever been a non-student chapter? A chapter? I know there's a lot of professional chapters around the country. Has there ever been a professional chapter in this area?
I'm not aware of a professional chapter. I guess the they do have geographical chapters, regional chapters, and for quite some time they have the LA, the Los Angeles area, Los Angeles chapter, I guess, an LA chapter, and about more than 20 years ago, the students and the faculty from San Diego, Hawaii, and apparently Los Angeles all belong to that same geographical chapters.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience? Okay, I'll jump in with one more question. I hate to hog the mic, but since somebody else is asking, Dr. Kemp, when you showed that book, did the author, I can't remember her name, was it Kathy Borner? Did she actually present at the conference? I was curious if she talked about how she created those visualizations and where she pulled the data from.
So I don't believe that she presented a session. She did receive the award, and I think she might have said something there. But these are not her infographics or data visualizations. She actually was the curator of a traveling exhibit. So she basically compiled this book based upon 5 or 6 iterations of that traveling exhibit of posters. So you can see actually here. So.
Frank, it looks like Angela has asked a question for Dr. Liu in the chat window.
Yes, okay, I see that. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Sarah. So Dr. Liu, it looks like, I think this was probably a follow-up when to Lauren's question, which he asked about the loss of engineering and science attendees, and Angela was asking whether you thought it would be a good idea to encourage the computer science professionals and engineers back to the conference.
Oh yeah, I saw the question there. Sorry that the question got kind of obscured by the video window, and I didn't see it at the moment. I apologize for that. Well, I guess the real question is whether the computer science engineering folks still want to be there, still want to do their business there. So the question is really, it's kind of hard, you know. On one side, you are getting more and more folks coming in from library information science background, and so the conference has become more and more dominated by folks from there, while at the same time the computer science engineers, they have taken their business away already and found their new platform. I don't know, I think the audience, probably some of the audience who'd appreciate some representation from the computer science and engineering perspective, but I don't know whether folks, you know, who'd want to move their business back in there. So there might be some political interaction going on there that I'm not aware of. But I don't have definite answer to you. The conference attendees are quite diverse, and it's kind of chicken egg kind of problem. You know, when the conference theme has shifted and emphasizing more on the application side, you get fewer and fewer folks from computer science and engineering coming in, and the same thing is going to happen among the audience. When the program shows little interest from computer science and engineering perspective, folks who are working on computer science and engineering problems are not going to simply come to the conference. So there's kind of a chicken egg problem. You know, whether it's going to be beneficial or not, it really depends on who is going to the conference, and only if you have people with that interest going to the conference, then it would be beneficial for them, for the audience, to have a presentation, representation from the computer science and engineering background.
Dr. Liu, do you think the decrease in industry professionals at the conference is related to the decrease in computer science professionals at the conference, or do you think industry professionals have decreased at the conference for a different reason?
The decrease of the industrial presence in the conference, it probably has something to do with the dot-com crash. Before dot-com crash, the conference had quite large presence from industries because everybody was working on something related to information. Especially, all the search engines are competing with each other, so they had a very interesting and a competition event among themselves, and everybody was presenting their new approach, their algorithms, and the results of their competition. Now, since the dot-com crash, and that enthusiasm seems, has kind of died out, and especially with Google dominating the stage now, you don't see that much competition, and so folks have pretty much gone with Google's approach to web searching. So, and that probably partially explain that. Although research on indexing and information retrieval continues, but as I said, they have moved their activities to the so-called special interest group in information retrieval conference. Yeah, so it's kind of quite complicated. I really don't have a straightforward answer to your question.
Okay, so we are pretty much at 7:30 now. This is how long we plan to go. I don't want to keep our presenters too much longer than necessary. If there's put out one last call for any really burning questions, and then we'll probably just go ahead and wrap this up. Okay, that probably wasn't really fair. I put you on the spot to ask a really groundbreaking question there with that last comment. So I was just going to ask our presenters one more thing. I think next year is a big ASIS anniversary, from what I understand. Is that correct? And are you all planning to attend the conference next year as well?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah, it's a general question for all of you. I was just curious if you're all planning to attend again next year.
Okay, and I guess I will go first. The major deciding factor of whether to go to the conference or not is whether I get something to present there, or if there's any committee activities. Otherwise, it would be difficult to justify the cost, and it's a school policy that the university will only cover the conference expenses if you are going there to do some business there. And given the economy situation, we're trying to save every penny here. So if I don't have any activity or don't have a paper presentation, I probably will not go.
And I see the call for papers, the deadline submissions April 30th, and the posters, demos, and videos call is due July 10th. So those are the key dates.
Yep, I do have a couple of items in my pocket. It's just a matter of whether I can find the time to write it up. Oh, yeah. The paper this time I presented was actually a poster paper, although it's still peer-reviewed. Officially speaking, it's part of the conference proceedings, so I cannot really take it straight to other publishing avenue. Yeah, and I will enrich it and to incorporate further research findings, and probably it works probably better, you know, to turn it into a journal publication instead of conference paper. So the answer to your question, Melissa, is going to be low.
Okay, all right. Well, why don't we wrap it up with that? I want to thank all of our faculty members who graciously agreed to participate and share their insights and experiences with us. Very useful for us as library school students and for those of us new to the organization. I'm going to go ahead and jump to our last slide here. Okay. I thought I had a slide here about our ASIS organization. I guess I didn't load that up. So I'm going to go ahead and hand off the slide to, the mic to Sarah for any last closing comments. Feel free to leave at any time. And thanks everyone for participating, and especially to our faculty members for presenting.
Well, I would like to say thank you, Dr. Liu, Dr. Ellett, Professor Harlan, and Dr. Kemp for your enlightening presentations. Thank you, Frank, for moderating this program. And thank you to everyone for attending our faculty panel event tonight. I hope to see you all again at our next program. For those of you who haven't already, please consider joining the ASIS student chapter, as we have many exciting things planned for the upcoming year and would love to have you join us. Patricia DeCruz, our membership director, will be the last to leave the Illuminate session tonight if anyone wishes to stay after the meeting to chat with her about the student chapter. In addition, our next business meeting is on October 26th at 6 p.m. Good night, everyone.